What's going on, guys? It's Jimmy here. Welcome to our daily show where we discuss everything going on here in our country that you need to know about on a daily basis, including money, investing, the stock market, the fourth stimulus package update, and the stimulus check update. If you haven't subscribed to our YouTube channel yet, make sure to click the subscribe button down below as it's completely free to do so. And remember that new videos come out here every day at 10 a.m., 3 p.m., and 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And also, thanks so much for hitting the like button for us down below. The government agency, and basically in extension now, the government, Fannie Mae, has come out and said that the U.S. is basically going to see a recession here. You can see here, U.S. to see modest recession in 2023 here going forward as we continue to see more and more major U.S. And even now the government, U.S. analysts, U.S. banking firms, and even stock market analysts now say more and more that a recession is coming, or some even say that a recession is potentially already here, largely due to inflation. Yeah, remember the most recent inflation rating is 8.5% here in March. Yeah, the government supported mortgage giant Fannie Mae said here Tuesday that the US will see a quote modest recession in 2023. I'm not sure if it'll take that long. I don't know how they can really say they can see that far in the future for a modest recession due to inflation, and other economic factors. But they do say that they see a modest recession here in the future. The company predicted in an economic and housing forecast, does that sound familiar? That such a recession will be caused by the record high inflation the U.S. is seeing. Remember that the whole world, basically, vast majority of countries around the world, 90 some plus percent, is seeing record high inflation like this. And just to give you an idea, the US is not the only country dealing with inflation. I know kind of the common theme right now is that stimulus is kind of in the US, the stimulus checks that helped out the people was the cause of this. Is not the case. You can see inflation is all around the world right now. Canada's inflation rate surges to a fresh 30-year high. United Kingdom inflation hits a 30-year high of 7% or even higher, actually, here recently. This was a week ago. Added to pressure on the government, Britain could fall into a recession this summer here as well. Inflation will limit UK's consumer spending power, with energy costs a particular problem. You'll see a common theme around the entire world. It's not just the United States here. Everybody's dealing with the same type of problem. Prices on gas, prices on food, prices on inflation. Asia and China, Chinese stocks dropped more than 3% after data shows China's producer inflation surging. So China's inflation also surging. Literally, this stuff is going on everywhere around the world. So you can't really blame Democrats or Republicans here in the US because this is a worldwide problem. So, like stimulus packages that were passed by former President Donald Trump or current President Biden, you really can't blame that type of stuff on this inflation because it's literally going on all around the world in all these countries. I mean, maybe you could find one or two countries or somewhere that maybe doesn't have this type of problem, maybe. But I mean, as you can see here, this is literally going on all around the world. I mean, literally headlines everywhere. And I mean, this just inflation is just everywhere. Oil prices, gas prices, food prices everywhere, and supply chain problems everywhere. The US stock market actually had a really good day today as the seesaw continues. The Dow Jones up about 500 points here today, and the Nasdaq up a little bit more than that percentage wise, up about 2% here today. But it's really been a seesaw because literally on a daily basis, it's up, down here as the market tries to compensate for the inflation readings, the gas prices, and the common everyday person really struggling with everything here. In fact, in the news here by CNBC just here yesterday, major news story here. Don't blame stimulus checks for inflation, says former presidential candidate Andrew Yang, who still supports sending free cash to most Americans because of how many people are struggling here today. 64% of people are still living paycheck to paycheck or behind on their bills. And this is what a lot of people don't really realize. I'll kind of break it down here a little bit for you. I know, like a lot of Republicans right now, like to blame the current president, President Biden, for the inflation, which is happening. But remember that former President Donald Trump's his first stimulus package was the most expensive package of all the stimulus packages. It was $2.2 trillion. Current President Biden's stimulus package, when he first came into office, was $1.9 trillion. So, I mean, if you're just kind of like weighing things out, like Trump's stimulus package was 2.2 trillion, Biden's stimulus package was 1.9 trillion. And then Trump had another massive stimulus package in there right before he left office. That was the $600 stimulus package that was just under $1 trillion. So, I mean, if anything, Trump actually spent more stimulus money in terms of trillions of dollars. Of course, the Republicans won't admit that. They'll just, want to blame everything on Biden in terms of inflation. When you hear Mitch McConnell speak, he'll just say, "Oh, the Democrats are spending, spending, spending." But in reality, the Republicans actually spent more when it comes to spending. But in reality, again, I'm not from either party, less than 20% of those packages actually went towards stimulus checks. There was all sorts of the other things that the money went towards: paycheck protection program, money for viruses, to combat the virus, for vaccines, money for schools, money for SNAP, money for all sorts of things, money for rent assistance, mortgage assistance, utility assistance, money for all sorts of things like that, right? And all sorts of things I can't even think of right now off the top of my head. But you kind of, and money for unemployment. Remember those unemployment bonuses that went on for months and months and months and months. Remember, it was originally $600 per month underneath former President Donald Trump. And then it eventually went down to $300 per month. That went on for a long, long time. Um, so really this kind of like, it was all spread out to all sorts of different things, all sorts of different programs here that went out to all sorts. I mean, it went out to businesses, it went out to people, it went out to unemployment, it went out to, people on SNAP benefits, food assistance. It really went out to propping up the economy in all sorts of different ways. And really, if we wouldn't have done that when the economy was basically shut down, I mean, it wasn't anything like we're seeing in China. I mean, they have 400 million people on lockdown now, and the lockdown there is literally you can't leave your house in some areas. It's you wouldn't even want to be there. Like imagine communist China lockdown. People are getting arrested for leaving their homes in some areas. It's think about talking about on a YouTube channel. You can't even talk about your government in ways that we do here. It's just like a totally different type of world, right? But yeah, if you actually look in my window, you can see it's snowing here in Ohio. Yeah, that's right. Literally, good old Ohio here. We're nearing May, and it's snowing. And what's crazy is this weekend it's supposed to be 80. Yeah, good old Ohio, right? I mean, if you're if if you're anywhere near like the Northeast, right, you know how it is here in April. Sometimes it's literally like it's snowing here today. You can see it. And this weekend it's supposed to be in the 70s and even like 80 this weekend. I know you can't make this stuff up, right? But yeah, this is. Yeah, but so here's the thing you got to really think about. It's like, the people that just like blame things on stimulus checks, those are the people that aren't hurting. Those are the people that just, they want to blame one party. They want to blame one president. Those are the people that, what are you going to do? Not help the people, right? Those are the people that don't realize that inflation is going on all around the world. Those are the people that don't watch this channel. They maybe don't see the news that maybe doesn't cover these type of things. That's why I show you guys these headlines that say inflation is at a 30-year high in United Kingdom, in Canada, in China, in all these other countries all around the world. So then you kind of realize that it's not the stimulus checks that caused this inflation. Because if that was the case, it wouldn't be going on everywhere else in the world. So if anything, helping out our people is the right thing to do, because what are you going to do? You're going to have this inflation and not help out our people? I mean, think about that. How much worse off would we be? Imagine how much worse off our people would be, us and our economy, if we didn't help out our people right now during a pandemic, during inflation at a 40-year high, and we're not helping our people. Like, and that's where you like, it's just like, come on, guys, we got to help out our people, our country, right? First of all, when you help out people, you're also helping out the economy, right? When you help out people and you give them money for food, they use that money and it goes into the economy. It stimulates the economy. They have money that they can go use. And what are you gonna? You're gonna let people starve? I mean, think about, we're in extraordinary times right now. Like, and if you've been watching my show for a while, you know that I talked about this before inflation even hit. Ironically, because it's just, I'm a student of history, that when you come out of recessions like we had, um, when you come out of recessions, because when you're in a recession, inflation is extraordinary low. It's at 0%, near 0%. Sometimes it's even negative. Okay, and the reason for that is because demand goes way down. We've seen this happen during the pandemic when they basically closed down the country. We've seen the demand for gas go down. That's why the price of gas went way, way low. People weren't driving. We've seen the demand for everything go down. People were staying at home. They weren't leaving. People were scared of the virus, especially when it was brand new. Nobody knew what it was going to be like. So demand for everything went down. Prices for a lot of things went down. Prices, you could see this directly with gas. The price of gas went to like decades low, an abnormally low price. Okay, it went much, much lower than it normally was. Okay, because the demand was low. People just weren't traveling. People were literally working from home when they had never worked from home before. Right? It's an abnormally low demand. I mean, think about it. People were working from home for the first time ever. Like, Jobs said, you know what? Stay at home, work from home. I know you've never worked from home ever at this job, but we want you to stay at home because we don't want people to catch this virus. We don't even know what it's all about. Just now, people are now starting to go back to the office. Like, companies like Apple and Google in Silicon Valley are saying, go back to the office because now we kind of realize that we need people in the office, and we need teams of people brainstorming together and working together. So now everybody's starting to go back here in 2022, and I mean, some companies have started to send back people back earlier, but it's just, it was an extraordinary time, and it still kind of is, and now with inflation, it really is. We just have all these. So again, now the demand is going back up, everything is catching up faster. That's where inflation is rising faster, and that's why you're seeing this all around the world, because inflation was low demand was low for everything. Gas went low, everything else went low. People weren't out at the store buying things, okay? And people had low money, okay? Because again, we were in a deflationary period. And then when you come out of it, everybody goes back to work, everybody goes back and everybody says, I've been cooped up in the house. We want to go out, we want to explore, we want to get out of this house, we want to get out of cabin fever. And that's when if you look at unemployment numbers now, they're actually really, really low. In fact, like a month or so ago, we actually had the lowest unemployment numbers in like decades. And that's because everybody wants to get out of the house now. Everybody wants to try to get a job, or at least some people do. Depends on, your particular goals and stuff. And that's common when you come out of a recession. Okay. It's just you go from a very low inflationary point to a high inflationary point because everybody's kind of making up for the lack of spending, you know? And this is common. This is normal. If you go back and study recessions and deflation and inflation, this happens very, very frequently. And that's why, a lot of other countries are at 30 and 40-year highs, just like we are. This has happened in the past. It's not unknown to us. It did happen 30 or 40 years ago. So it's not like it's never happened before, it just has been 30 or 40 years. So, but the thing is that at least we have like 30 or 40 years ago, they didn't have stimulus checks. Now we have all these different programs. They've sent out 3 stimulus checks. Now potentially maybe working on a 4th one. We have states working on stimulus checks now. Look at if you watch my previous video, all these different states working on stimulus checks, and that's because they got money from the last stimulus package. 30 or 40 years ago, they weren't sending out stimulus checks. Yeah, think about that, right? They didn't have SNAP 30 or 40 years ago. They didn't have did they have unemployment 30 or 40 years ago? Yeah, I think they did because they got that that was done in the Great Depression. Yeah, and then Social Security was done from the Great Depression. So think about that. That was just really a lifetime ago that those programs were created. But you got to think not too long ago, those programs weren't even around either. So really, there's a lot of different programs that the government has created that are programs that are needed, you know. And honestly, stimulus checks are going to be around here. Rent assistance, mortgage assistance, utility assistance, um, debt forgiveness, student loan debt forgiveness, and other types of debt forgiveness are going to probably be around here for a while as well. All these different type of new programs to help people are the government, and also kind of like stimulus as in like a form of helping the economy as well. um, I learned this when the stock market kind of crashed from the pandemic and then it came back very, very quickly. I learned that as an investor to not really kind of bail out because I learned that the government's going to step in and not let the economy crash like with the Great Depression or so. And I think that we might see that if there's a World War III type of situation. And again, I'm just speculating here. I'm just kind of talking, but I think that if there's a World War III type of situation, first, I think they might close the stock market temporarily. But I think that first, the market will drop. The market will drop for sure. Definitely people will panic and stuff like that. But I think the government will step in and kind of bail it out a little bit with economic stimulus. And the problem with a World War III type of situation is that will be a prolonged thing. That will be a prolonged thing with Russia. And the other problem with Russia is they have nukes. They have nukes, and that's why it's such a it's an unknown. But if you look at like World War II, the market went down, but a couple years later, it came back. It took some time, but that's where like if you're an investor, it's like if you sell right away, you lock in those losses. But if you don't want to lose that money and you can just hold, you don't necessarily have to lose that money. So it really just depends on your goals, but That's why this whole Russia thing is just it's a very tough thing for a lot of people with inflation, with gas prices, with food prices, with everything. Yeah, so you can let me know your thoughts here in the comments. I'll keep you up to date here with everything. I just did a really big video on stimulus checks for all the different states and the federal government. You definitely need to watch that next. I'll link you to it here next, but you definitely need to watch that if you haven't yet. But make sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel if you haven't yet. I'll link you to that video. But click subscribe down below if you haven't. It's completely free to do so. New videos come out here every day at 10 a.m., 3 p.m., and 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. You can click here to watch that new video I just did with a massive update on stimulus checks for all the states that have announced it and the federal government stimulus checks. So click on this video next. Thanks for watching, guys, and I will see you in the next video.